did the inspiration for the story come from? I mean, it's a government-sponsored superhero navigating her powers in politics, and and that, I mean, that can be a really complicated sea to navigate. And as far as like writing and the way you tell that story, the way you keep it relevant, things like that. So, where again, given that it was, you're saying that it's like a 30-year-old story, and I know it takes place in like the 90s too. So, what was the impetus? Like, kind of, what were you sitting? What were you doing? You were just sitting there, and you're just like, oh man, this would make a good story.
Okay, so I can tell you the character, Dawn McGregor, has these powers. She has red hair. She can make air burn or explode, right? The first name that I had for her was Red Dawn. And there was that movie in the 80s,
right?
Patrick Swayze and all the, hot young stars. The movie title was so great. I'm like, that's an awesome superhero name. So I created her look and her hair color and her powers kind of based on that name. Within a short time, I realized, I can't just make up a superhero or go anywhere with it if I'm ripping off the name from a pretty well-known movie. So in the 90s, I was going to college at UCLA, and I was an art major. And there was a course you could take called an independent study, where you basically proposed the project you wanted to do. And I proposed, let me write and draw 24 pages of a comic book. And the professor let me do it. And I did it. And so this is early 90s. And it was real close to when the United States was invading Iraq. Politics, military, we're kind of top of the news cycle. I was still very young, so I was just starting to understand them. But I wanted to make Dawn not just a beautiful redhead superhero, that can blow stuff up. I wanted her to kind of become the government's public relations tool because she's so beautiful and can have all these shiny, great powers. But as kind of a dark side, there are other politicians who want to use her powers covertly. She's a living nuclear weapon, right? So they kind of co-opt her to go run some missions and, almost like Black Ops in a way.
Right.
Take out this whole, rebel stronghold in Central America and blow up their munitions. Oops, you accidentally killed a couple hundred civilians. Well, don't worry, we'll cover that up. And so, thinking about it more and more over the decades, it got a little more advanced. I moved the timeline up a bit to include 9/11. So it's kind of an alternate history.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to build too much of a world. Like, I'm not as concerned with what are all the other superheroes in this world. I really want to focus on her, but there are other superheroes. Most of them are sponsored by the government, and I'm going to work through that when I get to the other issues. But so I hope that answers the question. I tried to touch on where the name came from, what it got changed to, Crimson Storm, where the inspiration came from, and so it's basically a superhero story mixed with world politics as well.
Right. And like it kind of evokes a little bit of The Boys.
Right. So my only claim to fame is I swear to you, I had
you had it before them. Yeah, no, I know that.
But there's all these great ideas out there, and people are gonna do them and their own version of them. It does sound very much like The Boys. Where I would say mine is slightly different is The Boys deals with business and corporations taking over superheroes. Mine is more, what if the government kind of took it and ran it for its own means, but very, very similar concepts in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Almost feeling like the whole PR aspect is very like Starlight like.
100%. No, there's definitely correlations in there. I could, maybe on the next collection, I'm gonna scan and put in the original comic I drew in 1991. In fact, some of that those pages I actually put into this graphic novel. I kind of reused them. These were pages I drew 30 years ago with kind of an ink wash, and I was trying a new technique. It's the story of her, going down to that Central American country and kind of raising hell, as if it were told by the locals there. So she's kind of presented like a demon, so it was nice to be able to kind of recycle some old artwork that still holds up.
That's actually a really cool concept to do it like from the perspective of the people who are being attacked.
Yeah, right.
And what legends and what stories would come from this event on their end too.
100%. I tell you, the younger you are, sometimes the more experimental you'll get, the more chances you'll take. And I'm so glad I was basically a kid when I thought up that idea and pulled it off. I don't know if I would have thought that up now, and so, yeah, it worked out really great.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely awesome, man.
Yeah. I love the style of her costume too.
Thank you. So a lot of the inspiration came from in the 80s when I was reading comics. All the redheaded, fire-powered heroines, starting with Jean Grey's Phoenix, right?
Right.
That's where her Crimson Storm's sashes come from. That's very Phoenix inspired. The red and kind of straps on her arms and legs are very Elektra. She's not a fire user, and then the famous boob window here is super Power Girl.
Yeah, that's Power Girl all day.
All day, right? So, I designed this when I was 16, and then I tried. It's very sort of exploitive. It's a freaking bikini she's in.
Yeah,
right.
And that's why I tried to write it like, oh, that's part of the government using her as a PR tool. Let's sell her sexuality, to Firestar. Thank you, James. Firestar was another huge inspiration. Starfire from the Teen Titans was another one. So with the name Red Dawn, I wanted to do my own version and then changed it to Crimson Storm.
I mean, the way she looks, I think Scott Summers would wait about 3 hours after Jean dies for the 10th time to just go to her.
and then have another child that he abandons at some point.
Right. Messed up family tree. That's Summers' line.
It's funny because it's been like, the running joke on this show because we did a bracket that was secondary mutations, best secondary mutations. And Scott Summers ends up winning with the secondary mutation of child abandonment.
Right. Yeah. What a secondary power.
Yeah, I think since the X-Men 97, that's been our running joke for almost a year now, just because it shows that's what he does.
Yeah. One of our buddies, big Cyclops fan, posted a picture that his kid got him a statue of Cyclops. And I was like, oh, it's the embodiment of child abandonment. And he took that as, because he was abandoned by Corsair. I said, no, we're going to take it a step further, buddy. Corsair abandoned all three of them, right? Havoc, Cyclops, and what was their other brother's name?
Oh, man. I'm usually good with nerd trivia.
You said it last night.
I did say it last night. That's why I'm like, how come
it's not like Vorpal, right?
Vulcan.
Vulcan, yeah.
Yeah. Who was the supervillain of the three. But I mean, like, so Corsair abandons the three of them.
Yeah.
And then Scott abandons both Nate and Rachel.
Yeah.
Right. To a point where Scott abandons Nate in the future.
Right.
Can't even be in the same timeline as him.
To the future, and then abandons the alternate version of Nate. So he just kind of abandons every version of his child. Nate,
come on, Scott, you need
right?
a parenting class or something.
But it's not. It gets worse. Nate abandons Hope, which is the most egregious of all of that.
Right.
Right. You name your daughter Hope and you abandon her. Come on, man.
Abandon all hope.
Exactly. Exactly.
The
Right.
saying goes.
So the joke is that the Summers legacy, the Summers family legacy, is child abandonment.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
So Scott has a child with Crimson Storm and abandons that child as well.
That would probably happen, I'm sure. Mm-hmm.
He probably saw his kid to the other next government agency that wants the kid.
Right.
Well, in this universe, at least they're taking care of him and not trying to kill him. You're better off here. Stay here, kid.